Paul, when did you, what was your first experience here at St. Louis High as we were starting out?
Well, as a student, as a Jesuit scholastic, some of us were at St. SLUH University to finish up philosophy and also take on a master's program. And so I worked in the inner city for 2 years. I brought 9 Jesuits eventually down to what was named Full Achievement. And we lived on 9th and Morrison in the South City, working with black children, white children, in a very, very tense environment. We brought a lot of programs there, but I won't go through all that. Except for every Sunday, the Jesuits at the high school here, Father Valaquette, roomed with us in our house in the inner city, and he would invite us to Mass and to have lunch, which was a great treat for us because we'd have these wonderful cheeseburgers made in the kitchen, food that we customarily would not have seen in the week. So it was great stuff. So St. Louis High, I have great memories of it from that perspective. And then certainly when I started Boys Up, Girls Up, we started here at St. Louis High because of the leadership of Father Bob Weiss, who invited me out of 32 Jesuit schools that were interested. We narrowed it down to pilot our first Boys Up home in relationship to St. Louis High. So he gave us number 3 Lawn Avenue, just behind the school, as our first site. And I had a wonderful introduction to what became the program called Boys Up, Girls Up, and only because of the kindness of Father Weiss and St. Louis High.
What year was that?
That was actually, in 1976 is when we began to put it together. March 17th, 1977 was when the first child walked into our home. And by then we had constituted a local board, and having first 2 years before constituted a national board. So again, it was, wanted to have it on Patty's Day, right behind our school, and some of the wonderful alumni, such as Danny McDaniels, came and celebrated that moment with us. So it was good.
Father, have you always had this interest in, not social programs, but I mean, whenever I think of you, I think of your involvement. Now you said even as a scholastic, where did that history come from? I mean, in terms of your personal commitment to helping the disadvantaged and those who are less fortunate.
Well, I'll be very short. When I was out here for finishing up philosophy, and I was working as a volunteer down in the inner city. One night a week with these indigent children, I would coach them basketball, and I was walking them back. And it just struck me in a moment, it was God's intervention, that I couldn't leave, and my trunk was on the way to Georgetown because I'd been accepted to begin master's and then a doctorate at the School of Foreign Service. So I came back to Fuse Memorial at St. Louis University and told my spiritual director at that time, Father Gene, what happened, and he said, well, you have to act on it. And I said, I know I have to, because the idea had such certitude attached to it. So then I moved into the inner city and did a master's at St. Louis U, kept the door open for the doctorate, which never came about because the idea of starting up homes for kids who were hurt prevailed, and we went in that direction. So, and then after that, even as president here, I wanted to use the position of president to begin a nativity program, which is called Loyola Academy. So that was in my first year. We got that one set up, but I believe that an institution like this, whether you're in administration or a teacher or a student, eventually should direct all of us to really helping people who have great needs, and to do it in a way that is generous and also one that has a strong strategic plan attached to it, so it has longevity.
Right.
So how was your experience here as president? What were some of your favorite memories here as president?
It was a wonderful experience. The team, the board, Co-administrators and teachers, faculty, and students incorporated such a spirit. And also they were so motivated to absolutely put in the effort to excel in whatever quarter they found themselves in. It was a school that had a tremendous amount of joy, a tremendous amount of energy that was so easily perceived, and a purpose. So depending on which group you want to talk about, it certainly, each group in its own way affected me in a very positive way, and I think led me closer to God because of the values that they had and the way they exhibited their values. So it was a very positive experience.
What were some of your proudest accomplishments as the leader here at St. Louis?
Well, as you know, any undertaking is a team effort. It's not that a president achieves anything. It's the team of co-administrators and the boards and the faculty and the parents who bring about results and bring about changes. One of the important, I think probably the most important contribution that the team made was to devise over 50 to 60 new electives. Because we came up with the plan, and in combination with Bob Bannister, he and I said, well, if you use a baseball analogy, why don't we hire younger teachers, put them in the bullpen, and have the veteran teachers teach them how to teach? And by doing that, we could say to the veteran teachers, what are the courses you always wanted to teach but couldn't teach? And so we had this amazing growth of electives, which had, I think, a profound effect on the students. And that's why you hear the results of ACT at 30, the average is 30. I think it's pretty much due to the interest of the teachers teaching those electives and the kids wanting to participate in those classes. So I look at that as a singular achievement where we hired 28 additional teachers and allowed the electives and subjects to blossom. So I think that's one of my proudest moments.
What about Vision 2000 and the expansion? You were very much a part of that.
The team was, and what we did was basically in my second week here, I walked the circumference of the school and I saw all these warehouses, 3 major warehouses behind us, which were placed now behind what we know as the Science Center. And I said, that's valuable property and something that the school should try to acquire. Well, the board went along with that, and even in my third week, we basically acquired permission from the owner to buy the bigger component, the biggest warehouse, with the idea that we would come back to him and buy the other 2 warehouses, which added, I think it's over 20 acres. But again, my math might be off. But that land was so important for the school. Obviously we couldn't go west because of the Science Center, so we could only go south. And then I think in my administration, our team bought 60-something houses in the neighborhood, and we were allowed to tear them down and add land to our southern exposure of the campus. So with the warehouses and the homes bought, we went south and a little west, and it really worked. So.
Very much so, because
Yeah.
it was you high remained in the city as opposed to so many
Yes.
other schools that folded or moved.
Yes.
west. So that's quite
Yeah, people would ask me all the time, are you going to move? I said, no, we're a city, and Jesuits normally make a commitment to the urban area. So I said, no, the history is here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so important to work within those parameters in order to make the school exceptional. And with the advice of some very important board members, we became a partner with the Forest Park Commission, and we developed those 2 baseball fields for them. And in return, they would allow all our track, our golf, and obviously our practice fields to also be part of their property, and until we developed the warehouse property, a lot of our sporting activities were at Forest Park, and they were terrific partners. Fantastic. Yeah.
So speaking about St. Louis U High's community partnerships, do you think that's an important aspect of the school, St. Louis U High as an anchor, as an asset in the community, and if so, why?
Of course it's an important part. I think more can be accomplished with people trying to set up partnerships, so there's no duplication and loss of valued resources. And it makes the school better to be in partnership with our neighbors, whether it's the Science Center at Forest Park and other wonderful St. Louis institutions. We can learn from each other, and we can go down highways that we, as a single unit, we would never have gone down. So I think it's a very valuable lesson. Also, it's important for our students to see how these type of partnerships add to the vitality of life in the city and certainly in their own education. So I think it is a wonderful value.
I want to go back just a minute to your own personal commitments to social justice and the Jesuits. I know the students now have the senior year a project where they go out.
Yeah.
Did you find during your tenure here a willingness on the part of the students to not just participate in that, but to accept and kind of, I mean, this whole idea of men for others and social justice, did you find the right environment here, or did you have to inculcate that?
No, I was fortunate when I came here that the commitment to social justice and community service, not only for the seniors, but for the rest of the students, was well defined and very active. Talking many times with some of the students, I would gather from them how important it was for them. They had, depending on class, whether they're freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, so many hours of community service to deliver. In many instances, they would go over that because once they were attached to a project, they basically set up a credible relationship with the clients, and they wanted on their own volition to be there more frequently, not defined by limitations of hours that they had to serve for community service. When I found the agencies, because for the seniors, when they're out on their 3-week commitment, the directors of those services would say to me, there's something special about the St. Louis High student. And I wasn't searching for that statement, but it was liberally given when I communicated with the directors of all these various institutions caring for the less fortunate. And again, it just demonstrated to me the incredible leadership potential that our students had, exercised as a high school student, age appropriate, but also basically predicted what they themselves will do as adults in their various communities in the United States and overseas. So I was always pleased to see the sincerity and the full commitment of our students, certainly in the senior projects and in other community activities.
Another follow-up question, you mentioned the expansion of the faculty during your tenure here.
Yes.
How difficult was it? I mean, at one time there were a lot of Jesuits on the faculty.
Yes.
Of course, there are not as nearly as many.
No.
But in terms of expanding the faculty so you had smaller classes and also this mentoring program, was it difficult to find the quality of teacher that you and the principal and the others to find the right mix of not only qualified teachers but people committed to the kind of values that you as a Jesuit propound?
Well, if you know Bob Bannister, and he was the principal for most of my tenure, and he's an exceptional leader and an exceptional educator. And his judgment in terms of character and potential performance was very much in line with the results that occurred afterwards. And if you understand the chairs of our various departments, how earnestly they sought to attract quality members of their discipline, I was never worried that we wouldn't find the talent, nor would the people who came not want to be assimilated into this effort to stretch for excellence. If there's anything that defines SLUH, it's excellence. And excellence brought at a tremendous cost of labor and a tremendous cost of commitment. The studies here are not easy. To balance that with other co-curriculars on community service, and obviously what parents expect and should receive at home, basically enkindles in a young student the importance of time management, but more than that, generosity. And I think, I bet the St. Louis High student today basically delivers on all those pockets in terms of living a balanced life with meaning and value. So to hire a teacher in this environment where they're walking into a class filled with young minds and hearts eager to learn is something that certainly instills within them a desire to be here and to stay here. All you have to do is look at the years of service of individual teachers who have basically given their lives to these students, which was a rich life for them, but also a great sacrifice for them as well. And as they struggle to provide for their own families, they do it at a cost, because this is not a commercial enterprise, but one that really demands increasingly performance, even in our performance attached to seeking new insights and new methods of teaching, and also at the same time mastering, even in a deeper way, the discipline that they're attached to. So it's a demanding school for everyone, but it's worth it. It really is worth it.
I think one of the neat things about your presidency is really not talked a whole lot about is your role as an educator and a role model. And I think it's really neat that while you were president, which is an exceptionally busy position, you were also teaching classes, coaching teams. So can you talk a little bit about your experience here about teaching, and then I know you were the C-team baseball coach. So how
A winning team.
can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, as a president, I took with me, I wanted to get to know the students at a deeper level. And I also am excited by ideas. So I taught freshman theology. When I went to Bellarmine in San Jose, I went to a senior theology, which the freshman theology had prepared me for. So it was great to interact with the new kids, because I felt if I got to know them as freshmen, I would know them as they journeyed through the course of their lives at SLUH. And that's a good knowledge, and where I can encourage and also receive from them their insights into the operation and any ideas in terms of improvement and so forth. And then coaching baseball, a C team, yes, freshman, was a lark. It was fun. So again, it just obviously being committed to that absolutely demanded that I stay up later at night in terms of getting ready for my own office of presidents and all that we have to do there as well. But it was I was young and I had energy and I had balance. So it was all of it put together was a very positive experience.
There aren't too many who have, as Ben pointed out, been able to handle all three. I mean, coaching is one thing, teaching is one thing, and being president of the high school is wow.
But I only taught one class, so a day, yeah. So.
What do you think makes St. Louis High so unique and distinguishes us from other schools?
The character of the student and the character of our faculty. these young men exhibit an incredible quality in lives that are so young. And yet they also understand, I think, their role. They were being given much in this education, whether on financial aid or their parents are paying the full tuition. They were given much, and a lot is expected from them. Quantum potens taltum laude is the saying, as much as you're given, make sure you exercise that in terms of bringing about results. So they're single-minded. They have purpose. They know that their education as a student and their further education is meant for them to serve others and to be a means by which real differences in lives that are challenged can be overcome because of their commitment and their perdurance of bringing about the values that they ascertained here as a student, both in their own family lives and certainly whatever profession they chose or major in, using that profession also to reach out to those, particularly the impoverished, and never to be satisfied with not caring for those that extend beyond their family. So I think St. Louis High distinguishes themselves because of this package of character that sees how important life is as a vehicle of service, but also how important it is to pursue goodness and to do it even in a secular age, to basically say, no, there's a deeper value if I can basically commit myself to being generous, compassionate, and steering a clean course in terms of activities.
Can you talk a little bit about you touched on a little about the socioeconomic diversity of our student body and why that's such a pillar of our community and program here and why it's so important?
Well, no school, I don't think, wants to be elitist and to just take as a student body all those who are wealthy or have family means and are very secure. Rather, I think a school in the Jesuit tradition is an institution that should absolutely stretch itself to make sure, even with great effort, to win the assets necessary to reach out to those that have financial needs. And so I know when I was here, and I know it has continued and increased, actually, the awareness and the drive to take more financially needy kids into the student body. And Dave Laughlin, being a great leader that he is, absolutely embraces that theory and actualizes it through his effort of fundraising and so forth. And you, Ben, contribute very much to that as well. So Jesuit schools are a platform to be inclusive and a platform that really can motivate different cultural elements to come together as a body and as a future core of friends to care, to motivate one another to care for their own families, but to reach out and continue in a generous fashion. What I liked about St. Louis High when I was here was when I met with the alumni, whether they were 50 years out or 40 or 30, the amount of friendships that they continued to hold and embrace, even though they had their own lives and in many ways their own geographic locations, they nonetheless saw themselves as lifelong friends. And I think the students here today would embrace that notion and I'm sure in their own years will exercise that type of friendship across geographic spots as well as across the years as they develop into middle age and then older people. Anyway, it's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing.
You touched on it a little earlier, but can you talk a little bit more about the concept of men for others and why
Yeah.
that's such an important part of
Right.
our community here at SLUH?
There's a real spirituality to St. Louis High. It has a history of that, and it's governed by that. One of my favorite scenes every day was at 7:20 in my days. We would have a community mass before school, and it wasn't unusual to get 20, 30, 40 students or families with us in the practice of glorifying God through the Eucharist. The theology classes, the retreats, the prayer services, the PA announcements or prayers that were basically inculcated throughout the school, the work in the community in service, the push for excellence. They were all designed under glorifying God. Why not use your talents and your energy to construct a family that respected one another, that respected one's ability to strive both in and outside the classroom to pursue excellence and effort, and to forgive those, all of us, who at times sin, and yet to be reconciled back as a community of faith. And so, to be men with and for others is the Arupe statement. He's a fantastic general, was a fantastic general. But I think it captures in one sentence the purpose of St. Louis High for its existence. This is a school that values value, and it basically doesn't change over the generations in terms of the pursuit of that. And then people will say, well, there are less Jesuits here today, and I would say the lay people are so infused because of their experience of Jesuit education, like Dave Laughlin and others, to actualize in a modern day the conditions or the what am I grabbing? The formulas that bring about the result of a Jesuit education, the ingredients. So a Dave Laughlin, who is a lay president, probably does more than I when I was president to embolden the staff and the student body to pursue the Jesuit ethos in and outside the classroom. So I think it's the mission of the school. 1818 to 2015 is quite a journey. I remember when the Trade Center went down, tragically, we had an assembly the next day, and one of the darkest moments in the U.S. Was, to me, lightened to some extent by the prayerful response of the family that is or was at that time and continues to be as the St. Louis High family. And I think leaning on each other from a faith perspective and praying and offering Mass was something that really alleviated to some degree the torturous pain that all of us experience in the loss of lives. Well, that would not be possible unless the school is founded in faith and reflects that faith. And to me, it's such an important component and is the center of the mission of St. Louis High.
Do you have any favorite stories that really stick out while you were president here? Any really, I don't know.
No. No, I just, yes, there is one story. Okay, as you know, a lot of renovation was undertaken by my team, and one of it was to burrow through much of the basement, the half that had not been made into a pool hall and so forth. I guess I'm sitting in my office, and we had hired contractors to burrow from the alley into that part of the basement that hadn't been developed. And as they're burrowing, the chief engineer comes running up to my office. Hopefully he took the elevator, but comes running and says, "We have a problem." I said, "Okay, what is it?" He said, "The pilings underneath the basement are the concrete is corrupted." And so I went down there with flashlights, and we saw that the mixture of that 1928 development or construction had used cement that wasn't properly mixed. And so these columns that held up the school on the eastern side were absolutely damaged, and you could see how weak they were. There were blocks of concrete that were missing in these pilings. And so to me, I looked at that, and everyone was really concerned that at any moment. So what they did is they shored up the basement, and for a week they kept shoring it up, and then they could burrow out and make it a developed basement eventually. Preceding that, a year before, Father Knapp had said to me while he was walking on the second floor of the Eastern Causeway, he said he heard a huge crack, and he didn't know where it came from. And then I put that together with the story of that day, and I knew, isn't it ironic, probably by expanding the basement we saved the school, not knowing that we were going to do that. So, yeah.
I'd never heard that story.
Yeah. It was really, I think that was, I haven't forgotten that story.
Right. That's dramatic, because like you say, the
Right.
portion of the school could have
Oh, would it?
collapsed.
Oh, yes. All
Oh
the,
my God.
yeah, the eastern wing.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you always want to construct, all right?
If you had to explain St. Louis U High in just a few words, what would those be, or a few adjectives?
Pursuit of excellence, working with very quality students, qualified students, both in character and intelligence, working with a team that pursues a goodness. It's a school that has great compassion, great generosity. It's a school that stayed with the city and grew with the city. And it's a school that has a rich history. Second oldest Jesuit high school in the United States. And to have navigated from 1818 to 2015 through all the chapters of our American history says a heck of a lot about this school. And it's centered in a city of people who are very charitable. St. Louis is incredibly charitable. And if there are two leading aspects of St. Louis, it's education and healthcare. It's a center for private schools and public schools. It's a center for hospitals. St. Louis has a lot to be proud of, and they should absolutely be proud of what they have accomplished.